Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking this really beautiful modern-day parable that honestly touches on a feeling every single one of us has experienced at some point. It's a story that dives deep into human intention, the sheer weight of our words, and what actually happens when we leave our very best intentions behind. It's called The Keeper of Forgotten Promises.
So ask yourself a pretty serious question right now. How many promises have you made that you never kept? It's a kind of heavy thought, isn't it? But look, we all have them, those little mental notes, the verbal commitments to others, or even just to ourselves that somehow just slip right through the cracks.
Like, I'll start tomorrow. I mean, we've all absolutely said this one, right?
Or how about, I'll call my parents? Or even something bigger like, I'll chase my dream.
I'll never give up. Okay, let's just dive right into this because it is so easy to feel completely overwhelmed by this sudden pileup of broken commitments and, the guilt that usually comes with them.
But here's the absolute crucial point to remember. Most promises aren't broken by bad people. They are broken by busy lives. Life just gets in the way, and it happens to the absolute best of us. But in the story we're exploring today, one totally ordinary street sweeper decided that those forgotten promises actually deserved a second chance. And that brings us to our protagonist, a guy named Oliver.
The story takes us to 4:45 a.m. Every single morning at this exact, incredibly peaceful time, Oliver pushed his broom through the quiet city streets. The world was completely still. Just birds, streetlights, and that steady, rhythmic sound of sweeping filling the air. Most people never noticed Oliver at all. But Oliver? Well, he noticed everything.
One day, Oliver picked up this crumpled piece of paper on the ground. But it wasn't just trash. It was actually a handwritten note, and it read, "I promise I'll visit Dad every Sunday." There was no name, no address, just those really earnest words. So, instead of sweeping it away, Oliver folded the note and placed it safely right in his pocket.
Well, days became weeks and weeks became months, and Oliver just kept finding more of these handwritten promises scattered all across the city. Notes reading things like, "I'll finish my degree," "I'll forgive my brother," and "I'll stop smoking." Instead of tossing them out, he started this really beautiful ritual. He created the Book of Promises. It was just a small brown notebook where he meticulously preserved every single discarded promise he found on the street.
For instance, one rainy morning, Oliver found a race bib with "I'll run a marathon for Mom" written right on the back. Later that week, he actually spotted the same runner sitting alone in the park, admitting to someone that he'd quit training after a few failures. Oliver just walked up, smiled, handed him the race bib, and said, "You dropped this." The runner stared at his own handwriting and whispered, "I forgot why I started." And get this, months later, because of that one single reminder, that young man actually crossed the finish line.
Fast forward a bit, and he met a woman who was closing down her small food stall. She happened to recognize her own handwriting in his notebook from a promise she'd made years ago to open a bakery before turning 30. She laughed nervously, saying she thought life had just gotten in the way. But Oliver replied with this incredibly profound, reassuring thought. He said, "Dreams don't disappear. Sometimes they simply wait." And honestly, look at the result. Exactly 1 year later, her bakery opened up on the exact same street Oliver cleaned every single morning. The words on paper literally transformed into reality, all because they were preserved, remembered, and finally acted upon.
Eventually, a local journalist noticed Oliver carefully protecting this old, weathered notebook. After she sat down and heard his incredible story, she published an article with this exact incredibly powerful headline: "The Man Who Refused to Throw Away Hope." And let me tell you, the response from the community was absolutely massive.
The ripple effect literally swept across the entire city. People were so deeply moved. Schools immediately began creating promise walls. Companies started actively encouraging their employees to write down personal goals. Even families began making weekly commitments together. Oliver's quiet little morning routine had sparked a genuine citywide movement of accountability and hope.
But of course, time moves on. 38 years. That represents an entire lifetime of quiet service. After 38 years of sweeping the exact same streets day in and day out, Oliver finally reached his retirement. On his very last morning, Oliver opened the notebook one last time, but the final page was completely blank. His young replacement looked down at the empty page and asked him a pretty natural question. He said, "Why didn't you write your own promise?"
Oliver just smiled. He told the young guy he didn't need to write his promise down because he was already living it out. His promise was so simple.
He said, "Leave every place and every person a little better than you found them."
After he retired, the city actually preserved Oliver's notebook inside the public library, placing a sign right beside it that read, "Promises shape the future, only when they become actions." And people didn't visit just to look at some old brown notebook. They went there to remember their own promises and to leave feeling inspired to just begin again. Which brings us, directly from Oliver's story, back to the overarching message for all of us.
So here's the crucial takeaway from all this. Your life isn't built on the promises you make. Words on paper, pure intentions, well, those belong to the past. Your life is built by the promises you actually keep. It's all about actions, honest effort, and really stepping into the future. Every single small commitment matters, and every step forward builds a much stronger reality.
So let's make this super practical for you right now. Please, don't let your dreams remain just words on a discarded piece of paper. Maybe today is the perfect day to execute 2 simple steps. Step 1, decide to restart something you once promised yourself. And step 2, take the very first step today. Seriously, make that call. Begin that project. Just act. Because tomorrow is never guaranteed, but the decision you make today can literally change the rest of your life.
If this story inspired you, make sure to subscribe for more explainers like this one. And hey, drop down to the comments right now and type, "I keep my promises." Because as we've seen from Oliver, true success doesn't begin when you make a promise, it begins when you keep it. The world is absolutely full of discarded intentions. So what action will you take to make yours a reality today?